It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday. And indeed it is. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Airpark Money Radio Studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. If this is the first time you're tuning in, our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. How do they do that? They do that by listening right here to Health Futures, coming at you every single Friday from 12 to 1 o'clock. So it is the Friday before Father's Day, and I couldn't think of a better topic to discuss than men's health. And I am pleased to have here in the studio from Honor Health, I've got Dr. Matthew Zweig. He's a family medicine physician, and I am really pleased to have you here in the studio. Can I call you Matt?
Perfect.
Or Dr. Z, right?
Dr. Z sounds good.
I like Dr. Z. Okay.
Thanks.
Dr. Z, welcome to Health Futures.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here on the show. And, you know, one of the things I like to do sometimes kicking off the show is to have you tell a little bit about yourself. And I did learn before we started the show, you're from the Midwest, the great state of Illinois, and a Chicago sports fan for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I'm originally from Chicago, grew up there, and moved out here to Arizona for my undergraduate, went to ASU, spent my 4 years there studying sports medicine, went on to medical school in the Caribbean. I went to a school called the Ross University.
Was that Roth University?
Ross.
Oh, okay.
Ross.
I thought
Yeah.
maybe I had a relative that had a university down in the Caribbean.
Yeah, right.
Which island?
It's in an island called Dominica.
Nice.
Yeah, which actually the school moved to Barbados after the huge hurricane that hit it, I think about 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow.
Just kind of wiped out, unfortunately, the whole school. So
And no snow days, were there?
no snow days. Lots of humidity. So
I would imagine.
Yeah. But, did my time there and then did some clinical rotations back in the States, kind of went around different states, and then wound up back in Arizona for my residency. I did my residency at a Brazos Central campus in North Phoenix, and then after that, went right into Honor Health.
Fantastic.
Here I am. Yep.
And you're a family practitioner with especially in men's health. And that's why, Lauren, who does Book Our Talent, said you need to have Dr. Z on to talk about men's health during Father's Day weekend. So, I want to just really jump into it. I mean, family medicine, it's something that we need a lot of. I mean, we have a shortage of doctors. So, Dr. Z, I'm so glad that you took the time and spent the money to become a doctor and be here in our community. Yeah. But I also like the fact that you focus in on men's health, and men are probably the worst when it comes to taking care of themselves. So before we even jump into that, I would love to know why you chose to have that area of specialty.
Yeah, I think that I just kind of live and breathe it. I overall live a very healthy lifestyle.
You look like you do.
Thank you. And I think that's what kind of drew me in the path that I've been on. And I think that setting example for my patients and kind of, live and breathe what I talk helps set a role model for my patients. And so just throughout my years of education, I've always been focused on sports and general health and exercise and wellness. And whether it was for my medical school or for a residency, or it was just for my own health, and my own accomplishments, I'm very keen on bettering my own overall health. So I think that helped draw me in the path of promoting men's health. I
Sure.
guess you could say. Yeah.
And is that specifically an area of your specialty, or is it family medicine you practice and you do this kind of in addition?
Exactly. Yeah. Family medicine, a very global term,
Right.
So encompasses a lot. But I think that with my own personal experiences and my own, I guess you could say, goals and desires in life,
Right.
that helps to talk to my patients about that and
Sure.
kind of lead them in the right path.
Well, being a guy and certainly, getting there up in the age, health is just so important. And one of the things that, we can really jump into is this, that as we age, there's the decline in testosterone and other things that come to be. And you certainly, bone density and muscle density and all that stuff happens. I once heard it said, and you can confirm this, I think that it's at age 24 or is it 25 that, you start to decline in muscle mass.
Yeah. Everyone is different, I will say, and just as a disclaimer, everybody is so different. So it's hard to just generalize everybody, but it's usually around mid-20s or early 30s, we decline about 1% per year in our total testosterone, and that's just generalization. Now, there's lots of factors that play into that, but genetics, how well you take care of yourself, sleep, stress, but generally speaking, around the early 30s, late 20s is when it starts to decline. Well, that is true.
No, and it's interesting because all of us want to live our best lives.
Yeah.
And, I look at, my dad, who unfortunately just passed this past November, and I know Lauren just, suffered that as well. And, this generation that was before us, knowledge is power, right? And
100%.
and they lived a very different lifestyle. They lived a very sedentary lifestyle, smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, not moving, eating all the wrong foods. All of those things add up. And certainly all of us have certain vices and certain temptations. But, I've always believed that it is living a balanced life, and that's really what it boils down to.
100% agree. I'm with you there.
So when people come in to see you, obviously, one of the things I do know is it's about the numbers, right? It's about what do your numbers look like? And it starts with what? How does it all begin?
Yeah. So you're right. There is definitely several factors that play into it. The first thing is the vitals, blood pressure, heart rate. Those are very important markers that we check. And then when we talk about numbers, we talk about BMI, somebody's body mass index. Now, I don't love to look at body mass index because it doesn't fully account for muscle mass. But that being said, generalization, BMI is a good indicator of, what is our ideal body mass index? How much weight do we need to lose based on our height? And then when we're talking about markers like labs, we generally check cholesterol, which consist of cholesterol, LDL, HDL, triglycerides, all different types of fat that are in our blood.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're checking blood sugar, kidney function, liver function, thyroid test, white blood cells. But we also start to get into age categories. Different ages, we check different things. So, yeah.
No, and one thing that you did leave out, or at least something that I watch, and it's because I have family history in this, is A1C.
Correct.
Obviously that, is an indicator for diabetes. And look, I'm talking to the expert. You know this better than me. Diabetes is one of the worst illnesses you can have because it affects every single organ in your body.
Correct.
Dr. Z, music's on. One segment down. We got 3 more to go. You've been listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I've got Dr. Matthew Zweig. He's a family medicine physician specializing in really working with men's health, and it is Men's Health Month. We've got Father's Day on Sunday. Stick around. 3 more segments. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. And we are in our second segment. If you're just tuning in, I've got Dr. Matthew Zweig. He's a family medicine doctor working with the folks over at Honor Health. And his area of specialty is men's health. And with Sunday being Father's Day and June being Men's Health Month, I couldn't think of a better person to have here in the studio with me to talk about this very important subject. You know, Dr. Z, I think men are probably the worst when it comes to taking care of themselves. Wouldn't you agree?
I would 100% agree.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
we kind of ignore the signs, and you know, the body is just such a wonderful machine, and it talks to you. I mean, it tells you when things aren't working. I can tell you now that I'm 60 and over, when something doesn't feel right, it talks to you and says, "Ouch." You need to get it taken care of or looked at, right?
Very true.
Well, you know, I can't emphasize enough, and you do this in your work every single day. I think the two things that are so vital to healthy lifestyle and healthy living is exercise and diet. And, you know, I'm sitting here across from you, and I'm holding this bottle of water, and so many people are drinking soda, they're drinking coffee, they're drinking alcohol. How vital is water to one's diet and lifestyle?
Water is very important. I mean, you put gasoline in your car every day, you know, to get it moving.
Right.
You need water to help filter everything out, all the toxins. So very vital.
You know, one of the questions I have as it relates to water, and just for our audience, I have not prepared Dr. Z for this, is alkaline. I know there are so many people that are really pushing these alkaline, high pH level waters. Is there really a difference in that? Or is that hocus pocus?
You know,
I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
You're
I
okay.
really am.
You're okay. You're okay. It's honestly, nowadays, it's really hard to get a grasp of what we should be doing, because unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there are people that preach one thing and people that preach another thing, and you should be drinking this, you shouldn't be drinking this, and you know, liquid IV hydration and yada yada yada. But I think that the alkaline water thing is not as important as people make it out to be. Mm-hmm. I think what's important is to be drinking clean water, you know, spring water or filtered water, especially here in Arizona. But any clean water is fine. We don't need to be going too crazy with alkaline or not.
Right. And how much? How much water? Because you know, I hear variations of that as well.
So generally speaking, I tell my patients 2 to 3 liters of water a day. Try to, which is about, if you're drinking a water bottle, which is about 500 mLs, about 4 water bottles per day of water throughout the day.
I get through that in the morning.
Now, if you're pushing that, great. Yeah. You know, the more filtration, the better. But there's a limit. You don't want to be doing more than a gallon of water a day. That's too much, because now we're going to start to run into some electrolyte problems.
Right. And now, you know, we're in the dog days of summer. So, I mean, you know, it's more important than ever to be drinking water.
Correct. I think the biggest problem I see is, you know, people put in a pot of coffee, drink it all throughout the day, which is a diuretic.
Right.
And they count that as their total water intake. And it's not, that's not a good thing to do.
You know, this show is about how older adults can live a healthier, happier life. And I got to tell you, many people or clients of ours and older adults show up in ERs for 2 reasons: falls and dehydration. And dehydration is such a big factor. And I mean, I don't know how we can get this through to people that they got to be drinking water, and not coffee, not soda, not tea, but water is the source of life.
I would 100% agree with you. Unfortunately, it is hard to push, and especially in the cooler months when people aren't as thirsty and they don't feel like they need to drink much water. it is dry out here, so we don't get as much humidity. There's not as much sweating going on. So it is important to kind of almost force yourself to make sure you get enough water in.
Isn't it the craziest thing? I mean, you come from the Midwest, right? And here it is. I mean, we're in June, so it is not monsoon season. But the craziest thing is it can be 108 degrees out. Jump in the pool. Pool feels great. And then you step out, and it's freezing. It's cold because there's no humidity in the air.
Crazy.
And the water is just evaporating, not only off your skin, it's evaporating out of you as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I can play a round of golf, and I'm holding a bottle of water, or 16.9 ounce or bottle of water, and I could drink 4 or 5 of these and not go to the bathroom once. So, I mean, I can't impress upon enough for our listeners to drink enough water. That comes from Dr. B, not from Dr. Z. So let's really jump into, exercise and diet. I mean, I wanted to talk about water just because we're here in the dog days of summer, and we got two and a half more months of this, the importance of water. But I want to talk about diet and exercise, especially with men.
Yeah, so let's dive in. I really preach with my patients with everything, and we're going to go into more topics, but diet and exercise is the key to longevity and living a healthy lifestyle. I mean, there's other factors that play into it, but it all boils down to eating healthy and staying active. And so let's talk about diet. So I really try to tell my patients to go back to the caveman era and to how our ancestors used to eat before there was processed food and all these additives and ingredients. 2 to 3 servings of vegetables a day, 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day, 2 to 3 servings of protein, whether that be from a vegan source of protein, animal source of protein, dairy source of protein, and then 2 to 3 servings of some good carbs like potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice.
Yes.
And that's going to give you enough nutrients that your body needs. Before we talk about supplementation, the most important supplements come from our food. So that's number 1. Number 2 is exercise. We need to start being more active. Even just 2 to 3 days a week of some moderate activity, whether that be lifting weights, going swimming some laps in the pool, going for a 30-minute walk, that is sufficient enough. Now, the more exercise you can do, the better, but at least 2 to 3 times a week, which I think is not that hard to do.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And, speaking of exercise, with older adults and the lifestyle that they live, and I talked about my dad, in that generation, those folks did not exercise. They did not move. And, the most important muscles, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Z, is your core muscles, your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads. I mean, these are the biggest muscles that you have. And these are the things that keep you upright. I mean, now that I'm in my 60s, I see people that are my age and even younger that are using assistive devices because they didn't keep those strong.
Yeah. And I think that I would 100% agree with you. Your core muscles are going to be your most important to strengthen and to keep in good condition, because lower back pain, cervical pain, these are the most common complaints that people present with. And it's primarily from sitting for too long, not being active enough, and not focusing on strengthening those muscles. So one of the best exercises you can do for your lower back is going for a 10-minute walk 3 times a day, or standing up. Literally just standing up will help strengthen your core.
And using your core strength to stand up. I had someone once tell me, like, when you go to church or synagogue and you're in a pew, right, not to grab the chair in front of you or the bench in front of you to stand up, but stand up using your core. How
Correct.
important that is.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, Dr. Z, we got so much more to cover. Men's health is very complicated, and not quite as complicated as women's health, but it is equally important. And I want to really dive in a little bit more about the supplementation and other forms of exercise. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We're down 2 segments. We got 2 more to go. I got Dr. Matthew Zweig, otherwise known as Dr. Z, here in the studio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we are in the second half here. We're coming at you from the Scottsdale Money Radio studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. If you're just tuning in, I've got Dr. Matthew Zweig here in the studio. He's a family medicine physician specializing in men's health. If you missed the first 2 segments, go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below that is radio show. You'll catch this one and many, many more. So, Dr. Z, we talked about a lot of different things. And, before we jump into some other topics relating to men's health, you look like you're a pretty physically fit guy. And, it's so important for you to practice what you preach. And would love to know, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but what does a typical day look like for you? And how important is that in part of your lifestyle and living? And I know you're not just doing this because this is your area of specialty. I'm sure that this is the lifestyle you've chosen from a young age.
Yeah, correct. I think throughout my years of education and now working as a doctor, I see too many, unfortunately, people who live not a very pleasant life because of the choices of not eating healthy and not staying active. And it all boils down to making the right decisions and making the right choices. And so I start out my day, I get up about an hour before work. I make a good, healthy breakfast. I'm keen on berries. I think that blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, any berries are very good for you. Not only do they have high levels of vitamin C, but they're one of the best antioxidants that protects our brains from free radicals and developing dementia. So I try to have a handful of berries every morning. I eat eggs, good source of protein, whole wheat carbs. And then I start my day. I have a cup of coffee in the morning, usually black, or I'll mix in a little bit of almond milk. And then I'll have a healthy lunch and a healthy dinner. And after work, I'll go to the gym for about 45 minutes to an hour. And I work out about 4 days a week. And I try to get 7-8 hours of sleep and keep my 2-3 liters of water a day. That's about my day. One of my favorite quotes is actually from Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can either have results or excuses, but you can't have both. So
I love it.
I think I kind of live by that.
No, I do love it. I got a couple questions for you, though, on some of the things you talked about. First, berries. I eat berries and I eat eggs every morning, so I'm right there with you. But organic or non-organic? And I know there's such a push on the organic side. And, obviously, the one, I think the one that I don't think means anything is organic bananas because they're protected by that big peel that you have. But when it comes to, the raspberries, strawberries, blackberries, and blueberries, which I eat a lot of, where do you sit on organic versus non-organic?
Yeah. So I think that everyone is in a different financial standpoint. And so I push that, whether it's organic, pasture raised, cage free, what's most important is that you're eating healthy, lean food. So if you can't afford organic, then non-organic is fine. But that being said, in a perfect world, organic fruit is going to trump That's going to be definitely better for you. Less pesticides, less harmful chemicals. And when we talk about eggs, I think that pasture raised is the most important, whether it be organic or non-organic.
Right.
Pasture raised is what I push for.
No, good. And I really, I'm just meeting you for the first time, but 45 minutes in the gym. I mean, I know people that think they have to spend hours there, and you know what? It's not the time. It's the quality. And I would imagine,
100%.
you're in there, you're getting your cardio, you're doing interval training, you're not sitting around chatting. I mean, I can't believe that some of these people go to the gym for 2 or 3 hours, and it's just like, what's the point?
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you.
No,
So,
and I would imagine, you're an outdoor guy too. You probably do hikes and things.
I am, and I think that's a really important thing to touch on too. Is that being outside is so important to get at least 20, 30. The more outside time you can, the better, and just connect with the earth. Get out in the sun.
Vitamin D, right?
Vitamin D.
Yeah.
And so, to touch on the supplements that I push for, vitamin D is a vital one. And so,
why is it that all of us are suffering from lack of vitamin D? Because I've been taking a vitamin D supplement for a long time, and I bet you most of my friends that I speak to that have consulted with their family physicians or men's health doctors have said the same thing. You're low on vitamin D. What's going on?
That's a tricky subject to talk about. You'll have multiple conflicting people, but vitamin D is a very essential vitamin in our body that our body utilizes a lot, based on how active you are, how much sunlight you get, how much calcium you take in. So it's important to get enough vitamin D. You can't theoretically overdose on vitamin D. I mean, you can, but most people won't get to that level. It's important to get at least 5,000 IUs of vitamin D a day, either in a supplement or get your blood checked and see
Sure.
if you are deficient or not.
Sure.
So, but also to talk about some other vitamins, I'm a fan of zinc, getting 20 to 30 milligrams of zinc a day, and then magnesium. And magnesium, we try to push for about 400 to 500 milligrams of magnesium. And one popular men's health supplement that I take myself is called ZMA, which is a combination of zinc and magnesium. And there's several different supplements out there, but ZMA is one that I push for. Getting enough vitamin D, I think I said 5,000 IUs, and vitamin B6. Vitamin B6, we get about 10 milligrams a day of that. And these are just important vitamins that help with our immune system. They help with our muscles, just overly bodily function. So,
No, important. And again, when we kicked off our show, I talked about how important it is to know your numbers. And, you can't really be able to coach or assist any of your patients without knowing where your baseline is and where you start. But having that foundation and then building from there and helping people live their best lives is so important. I love the fact that we talked about exercise and we've talked about nutrition and how important nutrition is. But, these are some of the supplements. Is there any other supplementation that you do recommend for people?
Well, if we're talking about a different subset of more strength training and sports performance, I do push for a supplement called creatine that has been around for many generations and has been proven in multiple studies that it does help with building our muscle mass and keeping a healthy lifestyle. So I try to push for about 5 grams of that a day. And then protein, which is in the form of protein powder. I do think that's important as well.
Really, it's these things that we're talking about, and we're talking about men. And we're not, as I said at the beginning, we're really bad as it relates to taking care of our own health. And I know Lauren popped in between our segment and said, how do we handle accountability and how do we make people accountable? I hear the music, but maybe that's a good tee up for this very last segment. Because obviously one of the accountabilities is coming to see you. But obviously, the accountability is, how do we keep people on that path? How do we make sure that they've got the script, if you would, from you to healthier lifestyle and living, but how do we keep them on that path? Got a little Marshall Tucker band taking us out here in the third segment. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I've got Dr. Matthew Zweig here in the studio. He's a family physician specializing in men's health. It is Men's Health Month here in June, and it is Father's Day on Sunday. We got to take care of our guys, and he's the guy for it. So Dr. Z's here in the studio. We got one more segment. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. If you're just tuning in, we're in our fourth segment here. And I've got Dr. Matthew Zweig here in the studio. He's a family physician, and he specializes in men's health. And if you missed those first three segments, go out to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show, and you'll catch this one and many, many more. So, Dr. Z, when we left off on the last segment, I was talking to you about accountability. And, men are the worst as it relates to health. And how do we make sure they're accountable? I'm wearing this iWatch from Apple, and a lot of us track steps, but I'm just curious to what you do in your practice to ensure accountability.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that I do is I try to develop a really good relationship with my patients, more than just the numbers, but also just personality, and try to connect with them, as a human. And I think it's important to have follow-up. I make sure that all my patients follow up me, whether it be on a biannual basis or a yearly basis based on their health history. So I try to keep my patients accountable by establishing a relationship and then making sure they're following up.
So I want to hit on that following up. We talked about men being the worst when it comes to their own health. Once a year, at the very minimum, they should come in and get a full physical, right?
Correct. Because things change.
Right.
And just because one year you're doing fine doesn't mean that the next year something changes. And we may feel it or we may not feel it. And so I think it's important that we get our annual checkups, just like you get your oil changed every year on your car. Or more frequent than that based on your car.
Yeah.
So
I have two EVs. I don't get any oil changes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm the old guy here. You're the young guy. I relate to that analogy, the oil, very well. No, but I get it. I totally get it. You got to get in once a year. I do. And again, it's knowing your numbers. Things can change.
Exactly. And I think what's really important too is that if you feel something, if you don't feel right, get help. Go see a doctor. Go talk to them. Tell them everything. Don't hold anything back, whether it be mentally related or physically related. And I think also mental health is important too, which we can talk for a whole other hour about.
We'll bring you back another segment. We're doing our fourth segment. But It's interesting you say that. And if you wouldn't mind, we're on the radio. So, I love storytelling, and I'm not asking you to divulge any patients in particular, but you just brought up a point that, we're not good at listening to our body. I would imagine you've had that happen to some of your patients, and by the time they got to you, it was too late.
For sure. And from my own personal life and my own family members to patients who have unfortunately gone through too many times it's too late. Having to hear that.
Right.
So I think that it's important, as soon as you start to feel something that's off, just like a check engine light, go get checked, go talk to your doctor, tell them what's going on. And we have solutions. We have things that we can test for.
Right.
I think that just general screening purposes, I think it's important at the age of 40 to get your PSA checked, to check your prostate. And now we start screening for colon cancer at 45. The most common cancers in men are prostate, colon, and lung, whether you're a smoker or not. So it's important to get screened, and it's important to talk to your doctor and be honest.
Yeah, prostate screening and obviously colon cancer. I mean, those are really important, and there's nothing better than having a colonoscopy. I mean, that's the gold standard. So, I mean, you men out there, suck it up. I mean, I've done it now 3 times. So, I mean, and it used to be 50. Now it's 45.
Correct.
45.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on a subject as we get ready to close. Testosterone. We talked about it at the very beginning of the show. Between mid-20s and early 30s, we as men start to lose muscle mass and we start to lose testosterone. I want to talk to you, real quickly about deficiency and what kind of treatments that you're offering your patients.
Yeah, perfect. So I think that as men, we try to be, the strong type and be the man of the house, if you say it as that. And so I think that's important to, if you start to feel lower libido, lethargy, fatigued, it's important to go get your testosterone checked, because in women, we have menopause, which is expected to happen. But for men, there's menopause, and most guys will experience that at some point in their life. And so it's important to go get checked, get your free testosterone checked, get your total testosterone checked. And there is a solution. We can give testosterone therapy to kind of help you live a more healthier and happier life. And so just like women are on hormones, sometimes even birth control, men don't get that same treatment.
Sure.
And I think it's based out of fear or maybe they think that someone will look down on them if they're on testosterone.
And they don't pay attention.
It's a stereotype.
To their health. They don't pay attention.
They don't.
But I do want to say this. I mean, look, we're besieged by stuff that comes on over on our devices and on our computers. You can buy all this stuff off you can buy it, from another country. You can buy supplements. A lot of this stuff can be very dangerous. And I would think that, look, you are a physician practicing in this area. You're not only measuring, what their levels are, but you also can prescribe the right product and the right dosing. Correct.
Yes. And there is a step approach to it. It's not just, going on something and see you later. There is important follow-up that needs to be done. But if you are feeling the effects of low testosterone, which 99% of guys will experience in their life, there is treatment, healthy treatment, that can put you at a good level, that can actually benefit you cardiovascular-wise, mentally, physically, and go on to live a very healthy life.
Give you the energy that you need.
Exactly.
So, Dr. Matthew Zweig, how do people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about men's health? This is a men's health episode right before Father's Day, representing Men's Health Month. How do we do that?
So I'm currently at Honor Health in West Tempe, on the corners of Broadway and Priest. People can contact our office, and we can get them scheduled as soon as they want. I have a phone number here at 480-882-7320.
Correct. 480-882-7320. You're still taking patients, right?
I am still taking new patients.
Yeah, because there are a lot of physician practices, and that's something we talk about here on the show. We just don't have enough doctors, and the fact that you specialize in men's health. Listen, men out there, you know your numbers. Make sure you're seeing your doctor at least once a year. And if you're just not feeling yourself, you're feeling a little weak, go see a specialist, someone like Dr. Matthew Zweig. Dr. Z, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. We come at you every single Friday. Dr. Z, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.